Agni Zotis here with the Educators Edition and Make Kids Transform. Today we have our friend Kareem Hayes. Yay! Welcome, multi-talented, and just on a personal note, we met at a film screening not that long ago, but I do like what you do and a brief conversation. So I'd like us to dive into you, your journey with what you do, and how did you get into education and what you do?
Okay. In the 10th grade, I had a poetry teacher that came into my classroom, and she said, you can write a poem about anything you want. And I said, I want to write a poem about racism, because, she was a white lady from Turkey. So I wanted to challenge her. I'm going to write a poem about racism. And she said, okay, you should, and I'll help you. So long story short, the poem ended up not being about racism. It was more about my own family life. I fell in love with this older lady because she had a program called Readland Rise and Shine. And it was the real deal. It was a public access channel where kids made public service announcements about drugs, HIV awareness, and things like that. I asked her, how can I be a part of your program? And she said, well, you can be involved this summer. Just call me and show me that you really want it. So I called her at 9 o'clock in the morning every Monday for about, say, 90, 120 days. And to this day, this woman is like my second mother, right? So I ended up working in her program. First, I was one of the kids that was being counseled, and then eventually I graduated to being a counselor. And I was always a visual artist. I was always a writer. And that was the first place that I found where I could cultivate my love for art and my love for community. And from there, she kind of showed me how to be a teaching artist. And, I'm 47 now. I've been doing teaching artist work for like the past 35 years, off and on at different, non-for-profit organizations, different institutions in my community. And I do everything from teaching art to talking about financial literacy, to talk about social development and activism. And yeah, but that's how I got my start. Laura Varel.
What a great, that's inspiring, right? And it really brings us to a full circle on how much kids can benefit and be directed in paths of creativity and community, because community building is fundamental.
Yes.
And why we do what we do. Where are you based, Kareem?
Well, I live in Jamaica, Queens, so you can probably say I'm based in New York City. When I service communities all over the city. So, Harlem, mainly Harlem and Jamaica, Queens, but I've done work in the Bronx as well with an organization called The Cove. And we did like a youth fashion show. And after the youth fashion show, we did a whole auction for the community. And part of my art workshop was teaching the kids how to design their own T-shirts. So we did tie-dye, we used bleach, we used acrylic fabric paint and stuff like that. And so, yeah, just great stuff like that. So, yeah, all over the city, but I'll go anywhere.
Well, I think that's fantastic. You're one of the few people that I have in the city, actually, that I know, because I'm doing these conversations with people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to have people like you in New York. What do you think of the art system in New York City?
I think, just to be blunt, I think it does not favor people who come from low-income communities. I think that there is a great art scene, but what I often see is that just, people who come from low-income communities or marginalized communities, rather, seem to have more of a struggle with getting their work out there. It's different tiers. sometimes when you come from like the hood or a hood neighborhood, you might have great work, but you might not have the kind of people that will purchase that work. So one of the hardest things for I think people from an urban environment is actually finding their audience, because you speak for the poor, but the poor can't financially support your work, right? But you still want to be a voice for the poor. So what I see with a lot of people say, especially like a person in my position, is you want to get with the people who are the haves, who have it, that they can afford to buy your work and work with you, but you don't want to lose the voice of the people that you're championing, you're being a champion for, right? And so there's always this like inner conflict. Am I selling out by going to where I'm more appreciated? And I think like a lot of artists from, marginalized communities kind of deal with the same thing, especially when I talk to people. So.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I think the art world is a strange place. That's my experience.
But I will say that I think that artists are like the other race.
Yeah,
I think artists are a spiritual race of people, because it's hard for me I don't find division amongst a lot of artists when you talk to them as people. I think that most artists have a more profound way of viewing the world, and we see things in abstracts and shades of gray, and we're able to communicate and report those things to people too. So I think art does break down a lot of barriers.
I hope so.
Because my
propaganda.
my art friends look nothing like my high school friends. Like what?
Yeah, and there's a massive variation within the artists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just an advocate for artists. I mean, there's very few of us. Well, I know, so that's not true. There's many of us that are actually in education. And I've seen many cases of being in the art world first and then becoming an educator, or being an educator and also making art.
All right.
I do think it's something about being an artist does break down the conformity of what we're fed.
Yeah.
Positioning, right? And I think it's nice to play with it. But I think it's important. Going back to my question, I was kind of curious what you thought about, have you taught in schools, or are you just doing after school programs?
Oh, no, yeah, I've worked in schools. I think a week ago I was just in Springfield High School. So.
Mm-hmm. Is that in Queens?
Yes, that's in Queens. Yeah. In Queens, I was dealing with 12th graders, actually.
That's great.
Yeah. So they're on their way to college and stuff.
Oh, now we're talking, right? So in my experience, for example, there's not enough arts in any schools.
No, there's not.
Right? And it's not just ghetto. It's any school. Unless maybe some of the privates specialize in now a specialized school. But I've seen that throughout all the years of my own son being in school, in all his schools. Like, if I wasn't doing art with his classes, they weren't doing art. And my kid had art because I'm an artist at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. So I felt very compelled that kids have to think outside the box, right? Because I do find this constant condition how we're supposed to fit this box quite dangerous that we are subject to, but it's a serious epidemic. So what do we do for that? Like, that's very interesting to me, right? Of going in and opening, because ultimately, aren't we opening youth's mind?
Yeah, opening their minds, and then I think helping educators, and I'm talking about like the Board of Ed, like these bigger institutions, kind of understand how closely art is related to the psychology of a people and the culture of a people. Traditionally, in a lot of African tribes, they communicated through the drum, right? So they learned through the drum. So you had all these folk tales that were said to a rhythm and a beat, and you naturally internalized, right? So let's look at school. You know, a lot of times they sit you down, they put a book in front of you, say, read from here to here, then we're going to ask you some questions. It goes in one ear out the other. Listen to a rap song that you don't want to like. You don't like the lyrics. I guarantee you, if it's catchy and you listen to it 5-6 times, you're going to know a part of the song. So it's obvious that art, music, the drum, all these things are teaching tools. Our ancestors that came before us, they left hieroglyphs, they left statues. They left statues that were stories, right? Because every sphinx is a story. In every country, even in Europe, they have these shields, right? That have sphinxes that are combinations of animals. These combinations are unwritten language, right? Every time you see a dog will mean loyalty. When you see a lion will always mean courage, right? So these are how our ancestors taught us. And if you really study, you can see that we were kind of way more advanced back then than we are now. So why aren't more people incorporating art into teaching when we can obviously see it's a natural teacher, right? So when I go in, I just try to pull from those things. I try to pull from the things that I know the kids love, like hip hop music, art, all these different aspects, because I found I'm my biggest guinea pig, right? And as a young person, I had a lot of issues with my dad. My dad was really physically abusive. My mom, was getting high and stuff like that. So they would always pull me in the office because of my artwork. When they asked me questions, I would deny anything was going on. How'd you get that mark on your neck? I fell off my bike. But that doesn't look like you fell off your bike. I fell off my bike. Did your mom come home last night? Yes, she did. I knew to not tell on my parents. But when they would look at my art, they saw that I was a young man that was disturbed. And when I work with young people, I can see things in their brushstrokes. I can see things in the colors that they use. I can see so much more than what they say with their mouth. And I feel alone because I'm like, why am I the only person doing this when I know that this is so effective? Why isn't there a whole generation of teachers who are using these things to their advantage? The guy who runs one of the programs I work with, there's a big hip hop battle going on right now with like Kendrick Lamar and Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And I started off my lesson plan talking about that. And the teachers, the guy who runs the program said to me, what made you do that? And I was kind of amazed that he even asked me that question. Because if you're servicing a particular demographic, it's not about me telling you what to think. It's about me listening first. We have to listen to the young people first, understand their voice, understand I don't agree with gang culture, but I have to understand what that gang means to them before I can attack it or before I can talk about it. And the biggest thing I've seen with and I apologize if I'm ranting.
One of the very important what you're saying.
One of the biggest things that I've seen with young people is we always want them to listen, but do we listen first? Yeah. Do we take the time to hear them? And then in hearing them, what's the greatest thing that you get out of that? You get a young person that says, like what I said to my poetry teacher, Laura, I feel seen. You see me. Yeah. And once you see them, then they're open to listen. You know what I mean? And it's like a really organic strategy that I take. And for me, it's like it's written on the wall, and I just don't know how other educators and other people in that space don't see it. And tell you the truth, that's why I really fell in love with our conversation, because when I met you, my partner said, hey man, you're not talking to anybody. I said, I'm going to talk to who I need to talk to. And when I saw you, I said, this woman has that energy. I need to talk to her. As soon as I started talking to you, we had a conversation. We're talking about art. We're talking about film. And then you say, hey, I have this program, where I work with young people, And as soon as you said that, I looked and I knew the universe. I said, okay, this is why I'm sitting here. And just moving with spirit and instinct and moving organic. has gotten me so many places. And when I saw that you was kind of like from a similar tribe, I was like, okay, this is the woman. She's got to be my friend.
Listen, I'm, and I really want us to do a project in Harlem, actually, and that's something that it's going to happen, and above and beyond, and everywhere through. Listen, what you just said, it's extremely important that people don't get. And I think that's not only in education, but that's in every single relationship that we have.
Yeah.
In any room, with our families, our partners, and so on, listening, right? And responding to their needs instead of like what I have to say, which is also great. Like we say what we say, by being able to understand the other, you have to listen to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Talking about kids, like I'm a true believer in what you said, by the way. This idea of why aren't we listening to the kids, or why aren't we like communicating with them on their level? And if it's pop culture, it's pop culture. And also pointing out that the pop culture is created within a bubble, that it is an illusion, right? Like that's kind of an important conversation to have with kids, right? Because, and being our own guinea pigs, because we're not different than other people. We might have different likes and dislikes and, different color skins and shapes and so on, whatever tendencies. At the same time, we're having the human experience, which is based on emotions, which is based on feelings and actions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So these are very fundamental points. And how do we get, I think it's something that when I work with my educators, I work on being like, you got to respond to the kids, right? We're not missionaries. You have to destroy cultures and be like, I know, and you don't. It doesn't work like that. We all know. And intuition, it's just the little ones don't have a clarity of their own intuition. And and most of us are beaten by our own people, by our own families to trust ourselves. But that's what happens. You grow up in a system, a family, okay, they're ignorant, we forgive them, but it's like they do a certain amount of damage.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Carry around and have to do a number of real work to come out of that state, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And trust ourselves and be kind. You know what I love, which I didn't know about you until now, obviously, the story of how you took this pain, right? And it's like you transformed it into real kindness. That's kindness. Right? And educating through it. So I think it's a wonderful tool. Right? Because the other side would have been on the streets, beating up others.
A lot of people say that is a choice, but honestly, I think that everyone deals with a level of adversity, right? That's why it's called a system. So, the person in jail and the jailer are both captives in that prison. And sometimes we get so locked into our perspective that we don't allow ourselves to be holistic and say, well, how does this person feel, right? People become victims of life, and they only look at themselves from the perspective of a victim, but they don't kind of analyze everything that's going on. People will complain about police brutality, right? And I don't like police brutality. But as a 6'1", 215-pound black man, I could count on one hand how many bad situations I've had with police. Because when I look at a police officer, I'm seeing a man with a gun. I'm not seeing the system. I'm not seeing all that. I'm seeing a man with a gun who's trying to get home to his family. So I raise my hands and talk to him like this. And I lift my eyebrows up. And I let him know that I'm in a defensive mode. I'm not in an offensive mode. I control my tone so I don't get caught up in police officer. Right then, look at that body language. Right. So if you didn't know anything about a 6'1" black guy and all you watched was music videos, and I act like the music video, and you get intimidated, you understand? So it's kind of like knowing those things and really understanding and loving people enough to embrace other people's perspective. And that is a big part of what saved my life. I always knew that I was not going to spend the rest of my life in jail or be in the street. I always knew that I was going to press my brakes at a certain point and stop myself from going in a certain direction. And I think a lot of people can know that, but they choose not to because it's been made popular. They give different paradigms to different cultures, right? So the hip hop, yo, be a gangster, that's the paradigm that is stuck on us. On other people, there's another one. So just trying to break them out of that paradigm. And part of my way of doing it is showing them that, look, I might dress and look and carry myself like you, but yo, I write children's books, bro. You know, I paint.
We want links.
I paint all day, you know. So, you know, and just showing people that, you know, it's cool to be a father. It's cool to be loving, you know. It's cool to have art.
It is cool because there's nothing else. Nothing else. The others be us.
Yeah.
At the end, it's like who we have loved and what has defined us through that love. And I'm so glad that you're doing that and having these conversations with these young people because they don't know.
Yeah, they don't.
You know, especially if your parents are not doing that work at home.
Mm.
There is that, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
And there's many. And honestly, because I've had the pleasure to associate with poor, wealthy, all types, people lack parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if okay, you're poor, then you have your issues. You either work today, all day, or you know, you're high, or whatever it is, the language, violence, or whatever. Violence transcends all class systems. I've seen it everywhere. So this idea of making young people strong and loving is fundamental. I just saw you shared a link.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us where people can find you.
Okay, when you go on Amazon.com /author/INF, or if you just type in any of my book titles and by Kareem Hayes, the particular link that I share is called King's Magical Life. It's a touching book inspired by a true family's journey, embracing love and learning in the face of autism. So during the pandemic, I took on the mantle of homeschooling my son just because a lot of the therapists and teachers couldn't come to the house and it was really difficult to do things remotely with an autistic kid on the spectrum. So I adapted a lot of their things, right? A lot of their stuff to bring it back. I also have 2 other books called Necessary Evil. I've sold over 100,000 copies of those. You could get those by saying type in Amazon.com, Necessary Evil by Kareem Hayes. Why am I jumping back to those books? I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of people had told me, you know, you should make a children's book. You should write a children's book. And I'm the type of person, I don't believe in hustle. I believe in business and service. So if I'm going to do something or sell a product, it has to be something that I believe in and I'm fully dedicated to. There's no sales pitch. You know, if you wake me up at 3:00 in the morning and talk to me, you're going to get the same stuff that's in this book is going to come out of my head. So once I started homeschooling my son, and once I started learning about the therapy, and then I started experimenting with stuff that I knew, like utilizing Janae Aiko, you know, because she records her music at 432 megahertz. So I would use music and kind of like an energy therapy to calm him down when he's having a meltdown and he's getting too excited. And then I was like, yo, let me see if this works, because is it just me and him? And one time I was at a film screening. This European family was walking. They could hardly speak English, and their son had to be like 8 years old, and he was having like a panic attack. And I said, let me see if I can help them. And I said, you mind me helping you? And they was like, yeah, what can you do? I had them pull out their cell phone. I pulled the song up for them, and I told Mom, I said, now, Mom, play the song in his ear and hold him and just think about love. And I'm telling you, in 3 minutes, that kid went from 100 to super calm. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, this stuff works outside of just me and my household. So make a long story short, I wanted to write a book that encapsulates some of the things that I've learned. It's actually going to be a book series because I've learned way too much, to put into one book.
Dude, it's so cool because autism is on such a rise and affecting so many people. I know a few, and in my own family, that could benefit from this information.
Yeah, so I felt like it was vital, and I wanted to create something for him as well. So he's my co-author on all these books. He did about 2 book signings so far. So, he's had the pleasure of signing the books to people and stuff like that. And yes, building a career for him as well, right? As a sound author. 7.
God bless him.
Yeah, so so basically I made the children's book just because it's something that my heart is really attached to, because I couldn't do it. It would be fake if it wasn't,
Yeah, of course. There's so many people trying to teach classes to kids that have never taught anything or even have knowledge. It's like, yeah, I deal with that all the time, by the way. And it's a little scary to me. Because they'll rip you apart. Kids will rip you apart if they smell something off from you, and they do, because it's so raw and powerful.
And they will let you know, too. They'll let you know. They will let you know.
And they lose respect, and they don't want to hear at all, honestly. But once you talk to them and you penetrate them and you said something very important, being seen, if they know that you're seeing them and you're there for their good, because they know that. They know when one is doing that. And we could all know that, right? We know when somebody's out too. And that's an energy kind of like, you're meeting and you're like, oh, okay, this person's looking out for me. It's not out to hurt me. Most of the times, right? That's all true. We're going to put all your links when we publish this.
No problem.
Can find you, because I think this fantastic work and really important work, and I'm so happy that you're doing it.
Thank you.
We have about 5 minutes. Do you want to add anything, honey, to this?
Well, I have slogans that I say.
Okay.
So I like, whenever I leave people, I always like them to remember that persistence beats resistance. Persistence beats resistance. Water wears down rock. Water wears down rock. And my favorite, happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice. It's not a conditioned response. It's a choice, right? Because adversity in life will happen, right? You will owe bills. You will slip sometimes and hurt your ankle. Sometimes your computer tech will go down and you have to get on a Zoom call in 5 minutes. All these things are happening, and they're not just happening to you. They're happening to all of mankind, right? Doesn't matter if a person is rich, poor, whatever they are, different race. When you see them, you can guarantee their laptop might have went out sometime this month. Or, we're all dealing with the same stuff. But happiness, you choose to be happy. You choose to enjoy life. You choose to smell your roses and just enjoy things and enjoy the journey, because once you get there, it's all behind you. So I always like to stress that to people. Happiness is a choice.
Important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not like, it's like an equation. It really
Yeah.
is. It's not, yeah. It's really an equation. These are great words.
Mhm. Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I can't wait to see what the future has. Good luck
Yeah.
with all your projects. You're also a writer for films, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be in a film this Friday. It's premiering in Brooklyn, and I'm like one of the lead actors.
How
Let's tell you the truth.
cool.
Yeah, I look really mean in the film, but I'm not mean in real life. But in the film, I look mean.
Sweetheart, it's a great message. But you know what? I mean, to be a nice person is not to be a naive person. And the real strength comes when you make the choice to be a nice person.
Yes.
Yep. Maybe some people think one is dumb and try to get over on that, but they don't understand that that's a real choice. And the capacity to be kind and nice, whatever that language is, has exactly the opposite of capacity of darkness in the sense of heart.
Well, mercy is a luxury afforded to the strong, right? Only a really strong person can be merciful.
Yeah, I believe that.
Well,
a real choice and something that one has to make if they want a good life.
Thank you for introducing me to your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we're going to do global stuff. I mean, that's the way I see it, because it's very important information for educators. So, it's great to educate youth, but it's even better educating educators, because it's like the way it works, just a lot more people get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, practice out your icebreakers. Have some energy. Even if you don't have energy, before you get around those people, you're getting on stage. That's how I look at it. You're getting on stage. They're going to watch every nuance. If you pick a booger, if you scratch your back, everybody's looking at you. Make everything intentional when you're talking to the young people. Everything. Your body language, your eye contact, everything, because it's a performance. Don't go there lackadaisical. And for that, you could do a job where you don't got to deal with people. But the first thing is dealing with people. Throw the whole lesson plan away. Deal with the people first. For the first 15 minutes, deal with them, engage them, connect with them. Then get into the lesson plan. Sometimes you got to skip the lesson plan. Sometimes kids just want to talk. If they're meeting you halfway, let them talk. Let them express themselves. How often do they get to talk to a person your age and tell them a real life situation that they're dealing with? Sometimes talking to them about teen pregnancy and wearing protection and being safe at night is more important than them telling you, who discovered America or who invented the light bulb,
Yes. We all know that. Listen, I mean, this is fundamental stuff what you just said, and if anything, that's the most important.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Yes, for sure. I'll touch base with you a bit.
Please. Bye.